Lukasz Konowski broke his mother out of the insane asylum the quiet way. They went through the back gate. He sprang the padlock with a piece of bent wire, a skill maintained despite grammar school's refining influence. He brought her some clothes stuffed into his school satchel, a woolen scarf, worried absurdly that she would hang herself with it, a cardigan with daisies at the neck, and an old coat. He had a pair of Wellingtons for her. He had wanted to bring real shoes, ladies' shoes, but he had not been able to find any. It was possible his father had thrown them all away, but that seemed such a decisive step. Luke did not think his slow and inward father would have taken it. Wellingtons were not elegant, but they would do for his mother's escape. The grounds of the asylum were large. They would not be missed for a while. He pulled the iron gate open, crushing the long grass. "Allez!" he said, and she stepped through, lifting her chin and shivering. They stood together by the road as finches hopped and darted in the hedge. Luke saw that his mother was frightened. She stood quite still, hugging herself, small inside her cardigan. "We can catch the bus," he said, as if everything were normal. But his 13-year-old voice was breaking, and nothing sounded normal. "Maman, let's go." Looking into her eyes, he saw the chasm. People were scared of the insane and thought it was because of what they might do, but Luke knew really they were scared of that gap behind their eyes. Luke wasn't frightened. It was she who had to live there. He would have done anything to save her, and he still prayed for her, even though his arguments disproving God's existence were louder these days than the prayers. He prayed and couldn't help believing that if he did something right, perfectly right, she might get better. "Maman, on y va?" She glanced at him and smiled. Her skin had a pinkness, the flush of sunlight, as if the blood had begun to flow, and Luke felt the power of rescue. They crossed the road to the bus stop. When the bus came, they climbed onto it and sat in silence as it took them away. 3 days before, they had sat together on Seston Asylum's bare, patchy lawn in their splintering chairs among the dandelions, with the tangle of pipes crawling down the walls behind them and the chimneys crowded on the Victorian Gothic roofs above. Hélène had given him one of her most assured looks and said, "I read in the Times that the National Gallery in London is to make an exhibition of French painting. Cézanne, Renoir. J'aimerais te le montrer, Luc." Luke's first thought was that to see paintings if he wanted to read books, listen to music, was the very minimum for a tolerable life. Even his father listened to music. Later, when they said goodbye, and she left him to go back to the day room and do whatever it was she did when he was not there, he said quietly, "Shall we go to Lincoln? Look at pictures in a gallery?" But his mother was a Parisian and a snob. "Lincoln? So provincial." She leaned close to his ear. "Londres. Londres." Luke could not help half laughing, bested by a woman, and a feeble one at that. Chut. Her hair was absurdly messy. She was standing in her slippers on the lino by Rose Ward, her candlewick dressing gown gaping, and scorch-marked bruises on her temples from the electroshock therapy. Soft-slippered footfalls defined the patients at Seston. The nurses, orderlies, doctors, all had shoes in which they might leave that tapped or slapped the lino. The patients' feet were all but silent. Their voices might be loud, sometimes they were very loud, but they were not grounded and could not be heard. "En train, ce n'est pas très loin." She was right. By train, it was not far at all. The nurses at the reception desk did not look up as he left through the mesh cage at the entrance, or as the door banged behind him and the catches locked. He had been visiting his mother at Seston since he was 5 years old. He came and went as he pleased. Even as he collected the timetables at the library for his mother's escape, Luke felt the weight of the odds stacked against him. He made schedules, lists. Leave Seston, 10 a.m., London train, 11:07. He had contingency plans. Event of police, lie. But he knew that the greatest danger was not the authorities, but his mother herself. Taking her away from the hospital and her medication, She would be jolted from the familiar,